This is Partners in Practice, a weekly series dedicated to the evolving field of the advanced practice clinician. Here is your host, physician assistant, Lisa Dandrea Lenell.
The physician assistant profession is one of the fastest growing careers in the country, and Money Magazine has named it the #2 best job in America. With an astonishing 10-year growth rate of 39%, it's no wonder that PA programs are popping up all over the country. One of the newest physician assistant programs is at Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine, which recently welcomed its first class of PA students. My guest today is physician assistant Jim Van Rhee, associate professor and director of the Northwestern PA program. He comes to Northwestern from Wake Forest University, where he was the chair of the Department of Physician Assistant Studies and the PA program director since 2006. Hi, Jim. Welcome to Partners in Practice.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Jim, why did Northwestern University decide to start a PA program?
Well, it's an interesting story, actually. The dean at the time, Dr. Louis Landsberg, was a graduate of Yale University's medical school, and he went back as a visiting professor. And while he was there, he saw how not only the PA students from Yale, but the PAs who were employed by the institution were working with the residents and interns, and how that was enhancing patient care and lowering length of stays and just the continuity that that provided for the patients. And he came back to Northwestern and asked the question, why aren't we doing this? They put together a task force, which included my boss, the chair of the Department of Family Medicine, Dr. Russ Robertson, and they did a needs assessment and talked to people in the community and talked to other PA programs in the Midwest and around the country and presented the proposal, and it was an unanimous, let's go forward, and the rest, as they say, is history.
Well, sometimes it's knowing what questions to ask, right?
Right, yeah, and it's being in the right place at the right time. So
tell us about the program.
Well, we're your typical PA program. We're 24 months in length. We're kind of small as PA programs go. We take only 30 students a year. We're full-time. There's no part-time option within our curriculum. The thing that makes us a little bit different is our curriculum. We're really focused on problem-based learning. We do a lot of small group activities with our students, going through a series of real clinical cases where they work through the problems just like we work through problems as clinicians in real life. So they develop differential diagnoses, they do a history, they do a physical exam, they order laboratory tests, and develop a plan and management for these patients. But we also realize that that's not the end to be all, so we supplement it with lectures, and we do a lot of hands-on learning. There's a thing in education called the learning pyramid that looks at how different teaching techniques and styles have an effect on knowledge retention, and they look at things like lectures, and they look at reading and audio-visual. And one of the bottom of the pyramid that has the best retention numbers is teaching others in immediate use. And one of the things we do with our problem-based learning is the students kind of teach themselves the medicine, but they utilize it right away in solving these problems. So they get practical application of the knowledge instead of just sitting in a lecture and kind of memorizing a bunch of information. They get to really apply the stuff they're learning right to these clinical cases right away.
Well, something I noticed about the program is that you're also offering 3 different clinical tracks: primary care, surgery, and inpatient medicine. Why did you choose this versus the traditional PA general medicine education model?
Well, it was for a couple of reasons. One of the reasons was it gave the students some options. The market, as you know, for PAs, it fluctuates based on demand. And demand one year or for a couple of years can be in the surgical fields, and then it can be in the primary care fields. And hospital medicine is a growing area for PAs right now. So while we know we can't make our students experts in those areas in the 2 years that we have them here, we were hoping that by a student selecting one of these tracks for their electives, they might be able to hit the ground, maybe not running, maybe at a little bit of a trot, but they would be a little more prepared for that first job without having to maybe do a residency program. The interesting thing from that was we surveyed our current students about a month into the program and asked them which one of the tracks they were interested in, and it went 33%, 33%,
Wow.
33%. So we had a third interested in primary care, a third in surgery, and a third in hospital medicine. So that was pretty interesting.
That is. Well, by offering the clinical tracks, it seems like it would make the program longer, but actually the program seems a little short at 24 months. Why is that?
Well, the average PA program is about 26 and a half to 27 months. And I know that program content and what we were required to teach our students is increasing. I mean, it seems to be increasing tenfold every year. I and the faculty just feel that 24 months gives the students the foundation they need. It was the foundation of PA education. We stress here self-directed learning. So even though we don't cover everything, and I don't think a PA program can cover everything anyway in medicine, what we do is we give them the skills to be self-directed learners and lifelong learners. So if we didn't cover it within the program, they know where to go find the information and how to find it once they get into clinical practice. And I think medicine changes so rapidly, having them leave here without that skill set is really doing them a disservice.
Well, that's interesting at a time when all the programs seem to be getting longer. This one is a little bit shorter, which, would be interesting to watch. And something else you said is that the first class that started June 3rd only had 30 students. Do you anticipate having such small classes moving forward?
Yeah, that was one of the things that I don't want to say demanded, but I really wanted. It's one of the things that enticed me to come up here to start this program, and it really helped me entice faculty to want to come here. We really get to know the students. If we do expand, we'll expand in various settings or locations. We won't expand here on our main campus, but we might go to other parts of the state or other locations within the city or within the area to expand, mainly to provide an option for students in those areas to go to PA school. If you want PAs to be working in underserved areas or in rural settings, the best thing to do is to get the applicants from those settings, train them in that setting, and they're much more likely to stay in that setting. So if we want to help meet our mission of providing health care to the communities in various settings, I think we need to go out there and train the students in those locations, not bring them all here to downtown Chicago and train them.
If you're just joining us, you're listening to Partners in Practice on ReachMD, the channel for medical professionals. I'm PA Lisa Dandrea Lenell, and I'm speaking with Physician Assistant Jim Van Rhee, Associate Professor and Director of the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine Physician Assistant Program. And we're talking about their new PA program. So, Jim, there's 154 accredited PA programs. What will Northwestern's PA program bring that is different than the others?
Well, one of the things is our problem-based learning curriculum. As I already mentioned, working in small groups, having the students be self-directed, lifelong learners, teaching themselves the medicine, interacting with each other, learning how to work as a team is one aspect. Plus, since we're at a major academic medical center, we get not only access to their tertiary care center here at Northwest Memorial Hospital, but we also get access for our students to all of their outlying underserved areas where they may have clinical rotations or clinical clerkships. So our students actually here get the best of both worlds. They can do some tertiary care, seeing some of the pathology that's not available elsewhere, but they also can go out into the inner city here in Chicago at some of the underserved areas or even out into the rural settings in the state and do clinical clerkships or rotations. So I think we're able to offer the students the best of both worlds.
So let's talk about that for a minute. Clinical sites is a real challenge for PA programs. Just because you're with Northwestern, are they going to let you slide right into those clinical rotation sites that are currently being utilized by the medical school students?
That was a little interesting at first when I got here. As with all medical education, one of the biggest limiting factors is clinical training sites, and this was no different. The medical school here was, of course, concerned that by taking on a bunch of PA students into their system that would eliminate some rotational sites for their medical students. So early on, there was a little bit of concern. The thing I stressed with them is that one of the goals here at Northwestern within the medical school and with our program is interdisciplinary aspects of patient care. And you really can't have interdisciplinary education for your students if you don't have an interdisciplinary setting. So right now, our students are even doing some things with the first and second year medical students in their coursework so that they get to learn about each other and share some experiences before they even get to the clerkship. So it's an ongoing process. We continue to educate people within the system here about PAs and PA students, but the more I talk to people, the more I see that relief in their face that we're not going to take all 30 of our students and dump them into internal medicine all at the same time or into OBGYN all at the same time. It's going to be interdispersed across the year and across departments. So they're starting to open up more and more, but I think for a lot of programs, especially new PA programs, the biggest concern is always clinical rotation sites.
That is a problem, and I know when I went to PA school, I sat right next to that medical student, and we learned together, and that's followed me through my career. we understand each other. When we learn together, we work better together. So I think that's important.
Yeah, I had the same thing where I trained. We sat in the same courses with the medical students and got to know each other. And I think it helps, like you said, in the long run. It makes us all better healthcare providers and a better team to provide care to the patients.
So you came here from beautiful North Carolina and you moved to the beautiful lakefront of Chicago to start a new program. Tell us about some of the roadblocks and issues that are related to starting a new PA program.
Well, I've been in PA education for 15 years. I've been at 2 established programs, one in a 4-year liberal arts kind of college, another at a large academic medical center in North Carolina. And I'd never really thought about starting a program from scratch, though I think in the back of my mind I thought it would always be a good idea to be able to put my imprint on something. There was some, not so much roadblocks, but issues that came up, that so much so that I've actually just recently finished an article I'm hoping to get published to help other people who are thinking about doing the same thing, to help give them a leg up on getting started. I think one of the biggest things that I discovered really early on was to make sure that there was that institutional and community support for the program. They have to buy in to your mission and vision for the program. Otherwise, I think right from the get-go, you're going to be stuck. The other issue was getting qualified faculty. I mean, people with experience, but also getting people who are fresh out of clinical training or clinical experience who are interested in going into education, so that there's a nice blend of different faculty. So faculty recruitment, the support, and then probably the curriculum. I've been at 2 places where curriculums were already in place, and having to create one from scratch was another big issue that had to be tackled right from the get-go.
Well, what challenges are you anticipating?
Probably the same thing that even in long-standing programs face, and that's, once again, clinical rotations. PAs who are out there in clinical practice, one of the best things they could do for our profession is help train the people coming down the pike. And if they're not a clinical preceptor, if they should call their local PA program or somebody in their state and say, hey, I'm willing to take a student, even if it's just one a year. If all the PAs out in clinical practice took 1 or 2 students a year, that would solve so many of the PA program's clinical rotation issues. We would probably be able to train some more students and increase the number of mid-level providers to provide health care.
Well, you mentioned community support. How has the acceptance of the PA program been by the community, by the medical students, the faculty at Northwestern, et cetera?
We've been embraced with open arms. I mean, it was very interesting. Our students are taking a couple of courses with the medical students. They take clinical ethics, and they take a course called the Organization and Economics of Medicine. And having MD students and PA students in the same class has really, I've talked to some of the facilitators for those small groups, really enhanced the discussion, because they're getting 2 different viewpoints of how medicine is practiced and how medicine is delivered. The hospital has really embraced the program, mainly because I think they realize the role for mid-level providers, both PAs and nurse practitioners, is going to expand, and their need is going to increase. So they're looking at this program as a future pipeline into providing them with providers. So everybody has been so open-armed and welcoming and wanting to do whatever they could to help the program. It's been absolutely wonderful.
That's good to hear. Well, your neighbor just to the south, Rush University, also just opened up its doors to a new PA program. And that brings the number of PA programs in the Chicagoland area to 6. What do you forecast for more PA programs in that area?
Well, there's actually 5 of us in the Chicagoland area, and then 1 more in the southern part of the state. So that's 6 in the state. The number of PA programs continues to expand. We've added probably 9 or so new programs across the country this year. There was a half a dozen or so last year. I think it'll continue to grow as universities are looking at the demand and the need for PAs, and academic medical centers are seeing the need. I think it could happen. I see more in the state, probably more than in the city here, but there's still a number of academic medical centers and colleges here in the city that don't have programs. For all I know, we could see another 2 or 3 down the pike here. With a city of almost 3 million, the applicant pool shouldn't be an issue.
Well, where can the listeners get more information about Northwestern University's Physician Assistant Program?
Well, they can go to our website, and I'd give you the web address, but it's really long. The best thing to do is to just email us at paprogram@northwestern.edu, and that goes to my email account and to my staff persons, and they just have to ask for information, and we'll be glad to send it to them or send them links to our website or send them more information, send them applications, anything that they would like or any information they would request, we'd be glad to help them.
Jim, thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
I'd like to thank my guest, Physician Assistant Jim Van Rhee, for introducing us to the newest PA program at Northwestern University's Feinberg School of Medicine.
You've been listening to Partners in Practice on ReachMD. You can download this program and any other program in our library at reachmd.com. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for listening.